Hello and welcome to another Valheim tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about some advanced efficiency tips that are aimed at players with some experience in the game, but if you're a beginner, I haven't forgotten about you. This video is absolutely jam-packed with tips, up to the very last second. So, without further ado, let's begin. The first efficiency tip today is in regards to 3 different resource farms. There's a few items in the game that you'll almost always need, like Surtling cores, resin, and wood, and sometimes these items can be challenging to accumulate because they often involve fighting. But what if I told you there was a better way? What if I told you all you had to do to get infinite Surtling cores and coal was to dig out a 3x3 radius around a Surtling spawner with your pickaxe until the area is covered in water, so that when the Surtling spawn, they instantly die? Well, here I am, telling you that. If you're lucky, you'll have a few spawners nearby so that you can portal in, run a quick line, and portal out. This farm can be extrapolated on to make it into an AFK farm, and since the guy that discovered it explains it way better than I ever could, a link to Mr. Rum's AFK Surtling guide is in the description. The second resource farm is for Greydwarf eyes and resin, but you'll get some stone and wood as a bonus. Find a Greydwarf spawner, dig around it a bit so the Greydwarves are contained, and place campfires. Admittedly, the campfires now take damage every time they deal damage and absolutely destroy frames per second, but in my opinion, it's better than wailing on enemies to get your resources. I recently saw another YouTuber, Iticus, use wolves to make an effective AFK Greydwarf farm, so if you want to check that out, there will be a link in the description as well. If any of you clever people have some ideas to improve this farm, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The last resource farm I want to talk about is wood. If you find a nice big hill and make some levels so it kind of looks like a terrace farm but also just kind of looks like a big scary hill, then you can place a bunch of trees down, chop the first few trees, and they should start falling on their own from there. Trees need roughly a 1x1 space between each other to grow, so feel free to bust out the hammer and get your measuring on. With resource farms out of the way, let's talk about food farms for our second tip. Before that though, if you've gotten any value out of this video so far, consider subscribing so you don't miss any more useful information. Anyway, carrots are one of the first foods you can actually start farming in Valheim, and to remedy the headache that comes from trying to plant them, pressing C will make your character walk instead of run. This makes farming so much less frustrating because you have loads more control of your character and can basically spam left click to perfectly place your precious produce. In addition to produce farms, you should definitely be taming 2-star wolves or boar. You need raw meat for like a billion food recipes, so 2-star boar and wolf farms can be a game changer all the way up until very late game. The only catch is to make sure you're taming 2-star creatures, otherwise it's not really worth it. If you do it right though, it'll make the food grind infinitely easier and exponentially more efficient. Just force your breeding pair very close to each other and they should start to produce offspring in a relatively fast manner. The third efficiency topic today is regarding ships and sailing. Sailing introduces some unique quality of life challenges that are sometimes brushed off as minor inconveniences that some players are just willing to deal with because the solutions are so easy to overlook. For instance, parking your ship can be a huge pain in the ass if you try to let it come to a complete halt by itself. Instead, once your ship is where you want it, just jump off and it'll come to an instant and complete stop. This mechanic can be used at any time, but I mainly use it to collect serpent meat off the surface of the water and to park my ship. This may not be new information for you, but I just recently found out that your ship sails the fastest when winds are perpendicular to the ship. This makes perfect sense if you look at the UI, so I'm not really sure why I thought a tailwind was fastest, but regardless, using the ship's full speed can be dangerous when sailing in a storm. If you hit a big wave wrong while wind is perpendicular to your ship, there's a good chance it could capsize, leaving you stranded or at the very least in a difficult situation. If you ever get snagged on some land, you have a few options to get yourself unstuck. Thankfully, the physics in this game allow you to give your boat a bit of a push to get it back into the water. If that doesn't work, you can always try digging your boat out with a pickaxe. I've unfortunately had to do it before and it got my ship out, but probably the smartest thing you can do is just destroy your ship. Once it's destroyed, pick up all the drops from it and rebuild it in deeper water. If some items sink to the bottom of the water, just build a ladder as high as you can and jump onto the items. Gravity will force you lower into the water, allowing you to pick up anything under the surface. Also, for the people that harvest like madmen and fill boats with a ludicrous amount of resources, you can put carts on it to increase your storage space. Just walk the cart onto the ship and voila, instant extra storage. Alternatively, you can just keep the pieces to the cart in the ship's hold until you need it, so it doesn't randomly disappear before you get to use it like it did for us. Where's our cart? The cart just vanished. Moving on. The next tip is regarding fires and workbenches near metal. As you progress through the game, the rested buff lasts longer and longer, making the potential duration of your adventure significantly greater. Sometimes it just runs out though, and if you're a long way from home, setting up a basic shelter is a wonderful way to renew it. My personal favorite is to build fires in caves, because not only does it let me rest and generate a small light source, it helps me keep track of which caves I've explored. Of course, you should already be keeping track of that with map markers, but humans make some pretty stupid mistakes in life, and keeping everything idiot-proof is nothing but a plus. This efficiency tip is particularly beneficial if you're harvesting metal or any other tedious resource, since it's incredibly frustrating to harvest without the buff. I usually set up a little outpost near metal veins just to make sure I have somewhere to repair and rest. Okay, the last tip for today is about metal. I'm not talking about metal that's nearby, I'm talking about metal that you have to sail to. If you're lucky like me, you might end up with a bunch of crypts right next to each other, and if you're super lucky, they might only be a short trip away by sea. If it's your first time looking for sunken crypts, you'll have a bit of setup you'll need to do in order to get yourself ready to go there and harvest efficiently. Get a portal ready at your base, then once you've found some crypts, set up another portal to get you back to your base. This is important because you'll have fast access to these crypts at a moment's notice. Additionally, you'll have a way back to base to stock up on meads or to repair. Once that little bit of setup is out of the way, you should start heading into the crypts. You'll find these chests, and it's important that you remember them because you'll need them. Not only do they sometimes have like 15 scrap iron in them, but as you harvest, continue loading the chests with metal until you've completely cleared the crypt. Use the portal to repair your pickaxe when needed, and also don't forget to set up a fire at the start of the crypt to regen health quickly if you need it in a pinch. Once all the metal is cleared from the crypt, start transporting it to your ship, either via cart or in a few trips. If you're satisfied with the amount of metal you've gotten, make the trip home and get all the iron out of your ship. The chances of you needing to go back for more iron is pretty high, but instead of sailing back to the crypts, just destroy the ship, collect the drops, and head through the portal. If parts of the ship sink to the bottom, don't forget about this gravity trick we talked about earlier. Rinse and repeat until you have enough iron to meet your needs. This can be done in the Silver Age as well, and even when you reach the plains, so make sure to use all the tips in combination with each other to maximize effectiveness in Valheim. I have a few random bonus tips for you guys that some friends came up with, but before that, don't forget to like the video if you got any value from me today, and drop me a follow on Twitter. Onward to the random tips! Don't be afraid to pack up shop and move your main crafting base somewhere else. Sometimes you're just not in an ideal location, and moving your entire base closer to the swamp or plains can be really helpful. Parry everything, like literally everything. Your shield is your best friend. Upgrade it as frequently as possible. You can make bridges without any materials by abusing cliffs and shores. While you won't have perfect land bridges using the level ground function of a hoe, you'll probably avoid having to swim, which is nice. Secret basement storage is a clever way to keep people from your loot. It might not look like much, but it's actually pretty effective. Hunt locks as soon as possible, and keep your distance if you're underpowered. They have some of the best food in the game. Also, don't run from serpents. You can take them out with very little effort, especially in late game. They also drop some of the best food in the game. Thank you so much for your time today. We'll see you in the next video.